Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with this week's tech guest. But first, as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, not so fast. Don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. I highly recommend that you check them out. So take the next 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Tech Tuesday guest, and then go and visit these sponsors if you're not already using them. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Gipper for their support. You know, your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that you've created to celebrate their accomplishments and promote your own program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. They'll have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. The website is Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, Gipper.com. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables, and their video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant AD did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no charge. That's no charge. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We'd like to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization for your school, Hometown's here to help you make the best solution. It's digital ticketing that offers more. HometownTicketing.com. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all of their events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to thank Home Campus. Now, Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling or scores or rosters, communication. Just their athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is worth the price. To get started, go to homecampus.com. Mention the podcast. That's homecampus.com. We want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Now, at my school, we use surveys for everything: kids, coaches, teachers, parents, you name it. And the information that came back was typically over the top positive, but there were always those squeaky wheels, those issues, and the survey gave us a chance to address them. But having that data from everybody is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. It's athleticsurveys.com. And we want to thank Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. When I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to one of my favorite states, Missouri, and we're going to be visiting with Shane Matzen. Shane has an incredible background as a teacher, a coach, and as an athletic director in the state of Missouri, both at the high school and the college level. He's also the author of a very cool book. We're going to get into all of that and more. But Shane Matzen, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Very kind of you to invite me, Jake. And I've been listening to your show for a while now, and I really enjoy it. So this is really an honor to be on with you. Thanks so
All right.
much.
So you're that one person that's listening. No, okay.
I'm the guy.
Okay. You and I were talking again for our listeners. It truly is. Our profession is a small world. You've heard me mention a couple times in my coaching career. We had a stop at Missouri Valley College, a very, very successful NAI program. Shane was in that same conference as a coach, has his own Missouri Valley College story that we'll go into on another episode. But
Yeah.
Shane, share with our listeners a little bit about your background, just to give them some context that, hey, this guy really does know what he's talking about.
Well, I've been around a lot of people and I made a lot of mistakes. I think that's the greatest way to gain knowledge. I will preface things by saying this. We're going to talk about my book, and I want to say something related to your show. One of the chapters in my book is called "A Coach's Best Crime: Larceny." And I think any AD or coach worth their salt, you got to be listening and you got to be paying attention all the time, because you never know when you're going to pick up something. And it's not stealing and it's not illegal. It's called being really smart. So, again, I go back to the fact this show that you've got going for us is great. I listened to your one with the gentleman across the river here from me in Mascoutah, what he did for those ladies with his volleyball team and the outdoor game. I mean, stuff like that is stuff we should be trying to duplicate and improve on. And I think that's just a credo in the AD world. But anyway, getting a little bit of my background here, but I wanted to give you a little plug there because I think you supply a really good service for the
Well,
ADs out
thank
there.
you.
You're very welcome. I grew up a little town in central Missouri called Eldon. We're down, some people have heard of Lake of the Ozarks, popular vacation spot, very close to there. Played a basketball and football growing up, and had a chance to. I was a good high school player, but not a great one, so I had a few NAIA offers. But I knew coaching was what I wanted to do. There was a gentleman that I grew up with, one of my coaches, his name was Cloyce Klein, who gave me a chance to coach some of the young kids in Eldon growing up, and that's where it all started. And I knew that's what I wanted to do from a very young age. So I went to the University of Missouri instead of taking the offer on those chances to play basketball. And I was a manager slash student assistant for Norm Stewart, the legendary coach at the University of Missouri, for 4 years. We had some great teams, and I always joke it was because we had the cleanest towels and best statistics sheet of any team in the Big Eight back then. But after I left Mizzou, as fate would have it, one of the schools that recruited me that I came very, very close to going and playing for, Jeff Sherman, Hall of Fame coach at Central Methodist University in Fayette, Missouri. And I got to be his assistant for 2 years. And what a wonderful experience there. A lot of that led to me getting my first head coaching job in a little town called Ellsbury, Missouri, near the Mississippi River on the Lincoln County in Missouri. And then I ended up at Marquette High School in Chesterfield, Missouri, which is where I currently reside. I was there for 27 years, retired from my education career there. I was head boys basketball coach for 17 of my 18 years teaching. And the last 9 years, I was what we call activities director, because, I did not have an assistant, but we had 2,400 kids, 23 sports, 70 teams. And I had 5 huge fine arts programs. So there was a lot going on there and a lot of balls up in the air, which your listeners know all about. But and once I retired a couple years ago, I now work for a company in Edmond, Oklahoma called Graves Golf. I learned my better golf swing from them, and now I work with their membership out of my home here in St. Louis. So a lot has gone on in my life, but a lot of experiences which have all played into this whole thing with having this book come out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that journey, and it's great to see that you're still involved, in coaching kids, coaching people. So it never lets go. That's a great transition, my part, to your book. The title is just very catching, but the content is what I'm going to let you talk about.
Sure.
Tell us first, tell us the name of the book, but then how did it all get started? Why write a book? Hmm.
Yeah, the name of my book, and we'll talk more about it at the end, but it's available on Amazon. It's easy to look up via my name or the title. The title is Coaching. Is it worth it? And then in parentheses in big capital letters, absolutely. Um, this book, I've written my whole life. I've loved to write, and I grew up near Lake of the Ozarks, which is a major waterway, and I can't swim very well, but I like to speak in front of people. I'm this oddball that I can't swim, and I grew up by a lake, but I don't mind speaking and I don't mind writing. I like those things. So I've written a lot my whole life. When I was basketball coach, I would stay up very late. I had a website that I would type up game summaries. I would keep those, compile them for yearbooks for my kids. I produced my own coaches show when I was a coach. That was part of a fundraiser. I traveled to Indiana, did a thing on the Indiana basketball Hoosier Gym where they filmed the movie. Interviewed Larry Brown, Fran Fraschilla, Norm Stewart. I mean, I had a blast with all that and made a little money for our program. But all that while I'm writing, and I'm writing for the Missouri Basketball Coach Association. I'm the newsletter editor. When I got out of the basketball gig and became AD, I wrote a weekly newsletter for my staff, which kind of leads into a major point that I think you'll agree with me. And I think it will resonate with a lot of the ADs out there listening to this. I don't know that anybody grows up wanting to be an assistant principal or a principal or an athletic director. I don't hear any young kids saying, I want to be an AD someday. That's just nothing you hear. But you hear a lot of kids that say, I want to do something beyond my career as a performer or as an athlete. I want to coach. I want to help others. That was my dream. Well, the opportunity to become an AD presented itself. And at our school, our ADs, we're on our fourth one. We've been around since 1993, and our ADs have all served a decade or so and then retired. And so it's not a position that comes open every year. And so when the opportunity presented itself, it was something that I needed to do at that point in my life, even though I was coming into my own as a coach. I was starting to figure things out, and so I found very quickly, and I knew this. Anybody that teaches or coaches in a building, hopefully you all have good relationships with your administrators. That's the goal, and I think for most people it is. But I don't care where you're at, positive or negative. There is that glass wall between those two groups. There just is, and I knew it was coming, but it was still there, and it I miss coaching. And that's why I love being in this new position with our golf company. I get to work with folks again in that capacity. But what I wanted to constantly do, and I think all administrators, you better focus on this really hard. You better focus on letting them see a side of you that's human, that's normal, and not be up on this pedestal as an administrator where your word is the law. I'm not saying cater to the wrong element or the wrong ideas, but you got to be relatable, because if they don't feel comfortable knocking on your door when times are tough, you're not going to be a successful administrator, whether that's a principal or an activities director. So long story short, these newsletters were one way I did that. And I really, I threw a lot of myself out there. There were weeks I probably gave them information they didn't need to be hearing about me. It was probably personal. It was probably things that weren't going well for me, but I wanted to know I was with them. I was in the trenches with them. And so my book is divided into three parts. It's the first part is my coaching days. A lot of it is stuff I wrote for the Missouri Basketball Coach Association. The second part, and it's big. It's 9 years worth. It's all about being the activities director at Marquette High School and the things I was dealing with from week to week. And then the third section is my new career with Graves Golf and coaching folks out there in that world. Um, the One of the things you'll see in the book, it's not just I just copied and pasted stuff into a book. What I also do during the book is you'll see in italics, I'll be like whispering over your shoulder, hey, what you're about to read, here's what was going on at our school or in the world at this time. And COVID's a great example because you're going to read some of the
Mhm.
stuff that was going on during COVID that we were all dealing with. And it was different around the country and in the state of Missouri, depending on where you were at and what was allowed and all that sort of stuff. So I really try to not only bring back things I've written from the past, but also give you some context as you go along. And three or four other little things about the book, and then maybe I can throw in some chapters here if you'd like to hear about a few. Um, Number one is the setup of it. You're going to see my viewpoint from the coaching end, which will relate to all sports, not just basketball. You're going to see that this is an extremely easy book to read, specifically for busy people. I've had so many people tell me this that they're not big book readers, but they like to read and they want some outlet for reading. My book is 250 plus pages, but it has over 200 chapters. So these are all little snippets of my life going through all this. And you can set this book in your nightstand and you can read one or two before you go to sleep. And you're probably going to go, oh, wow, I'm glad somebody else dealt with that just like I did. And so many of the chapters are just everyday life things. And I think a lot of people relate to them because I know we're talking to an AD audience here, but I've had people that don't have anything to do with sports, and there's one story where I talk about I don't know if you have all these supermarkets in Florida, but one of the things about Aldi's is, I do a story about putting the quarter in the cart. That's the only way you can get a grocery cart. And you take the cart back to the up to the store and you get your quarter back. And I talk about how nice people can be. Somebody will walk up and they don't have a quarter, and I'm like, just take my card. Somebody did that for me. So I passed it along to the next person. And we were going through a rough stretch at school at that time with some incidents. And I said, how great would it be if the entire world passed along a cart to someone else and just kept passing it along? I tried to turn little things in my life into things that my staff could relate to. The last point I would make to this really that I think relates to your audience here is I've had multiple ADs, and this is going to come across as a sales pitch, but I don't care. It's true. I've had multiple ADs here in our state that have purchased copies for their staffs, and their staffs are getting really great responses because they've just said, I enjoy reading about some ideas I can use and some things that Shane really screwed up on that I'm going to try to avoid. And, and just the comfort of mind knowing that there's other people out here like me and what I'm going through as a coach or an administrator, I'm not alone. And so that was a big part of me putting this book together.
Boy, so many things I want to talk about here. You started off with the idea of stealing ideas, and I think athletic directors, they talk about it with a huge smile on their face. Hey, I stole
Absolutely.
this great idea from so and so, and it's true. Athletic directors really can't wait. You don't even have to wait to steal it because
No.
somebody's going to give it to you, and it's just so different. I'll say it's a little bit different from coaching. Coaches, we'll share some things. Well, we're not going to give you everything because we don't want you to come back and beat us. But
It
ADs,
depends on the mileage
uh,
away they are and
uh,
if they're on your schedule.
ADs can't wait to give away stuff.
Yeah.
Also, your part about having that relationship, showing your coaches as an AD, showing them that you're human. I remember when I became an AD. Talk about you don't know what you don't know. I was I I was not ready at all, and it
Yeah.
it took me
Join
a
the club.
while. I'm a lot older than you. I use the reference when I first started out as an AD. I was Captain Kirk from Star Trek. You're going to do it my way, Mister.
Yeah.
And over the years, too many years, I learned. And in my later career, I was more of an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Just trying to nurture those coaches. But it is so true and so important. It's like the kids we say for coaches. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's the same
Yeah.
way with coaches and ADs. Um, we only have a certain amount of time, and we don't want to give them the whole book today. We want them to go out and buy the book.
You
Um,
bet.
what's You've done a great job of sharing, I guess your why, why this wasn't important to you, how it came together. Um, what's one more thing you would want our listeners to pick up before they go to Amazon and order the book? What's one more thing that, right at the top of your mind that you're just very proud of or you'd like to share about the book?
Well, to relate to what you just said, and I'm anxious to hear if you agree with me, Jake. Do you? I always felt this way, and I told my successor at my school, he was our softball coach, and he took over for me. I said the first year is going to be utter chaos and confusion, and you're not even going to stop to think about how big a hole you've dug for yourself. The second year is the worst year because now you know what you've got yourself into and how do I get out. And the third year, you start to get your hands around it and it's like, okay, I can do this. And then the years start to build up and you start to realize the fulfillment of what you're doing. I gotta believe others have to feel that way because that was my total experience with that. I'm anxious to hear your response to that.
I think I agree with the premise, but for me, it wasn't that third year. I was hired at a school. I was the head football coach and the AD. And I
Mm,
think I did an okay job from the management. So I did a very
yeah,
good job from the management side of the AD. I didn't do a very good job at all from the leadership, the mentoring that ADs should do. And I was at that school for 8 years. We had good success. I still have some great relationships with many of the coaches that I worked with. Um, but my second stint as an AD, I was hired at another school just as the AD, not as the football coach.
sure. Yeah,
And the head of school, he told me during the interview, and they were close by. They had kind of seen that we had done a good job, as a school. Um, the head of school goes, Jake, that athletic department is the Wild West. They need a new sheriff, and which was good to hear, but really I didn't approach it as much as I should. I came in full Captain Kirk and was there for 6 years. And, we made a lot of headroads. We won a lot of games. And I think we did a very good job. But towards the end of that 6 years, they were getting kind of tired of hearing my voice.
yeah.
They were doing things, but
Hmm.
it wasn't the best. And so, long story short, when I went to my next school as the AD, where I stayed until I retired, it was probably one of the most successful academic athletic private schools in Florida. They didn't need me at all. But anyway, they still hired me as the AD. And I wish I could remember where I had heard this and where I ended up stealing it from, because it certainly wasn't my idea. But that summer, when I came on campus, July 1 was my first day. I'd already sent all the coaches, almost 100 coaches, head coach, assistant coach, middle school coaches, assistants. I'd sent them an email, hey, Jake Fonchier, excited to come on board. Please come in and say hi this summer. I'd love to, sit down and chat with you. Almost every single coach came in. And this is the first thing I said to them. What can I do as an athletic director to make your job more fun? What can I take off of your plate? And they had been doing, athlete registration and clearance
Yeah,
and scheduling, all this stuff. They had just been overloaded. And I wasn't teaching, I wasn't coaching. So I said, hey, I can do that stuff if you want. And
yeah.
I had several coaches that had been there for a long time, Hall of Fame coaches, state champion coaches. They said, nobody ever asked us that before.
Mhm.
And I wish I would have had that particular tool, if you will, in my toolbox when I first started out, because the years that I spent at that school were fantastic. From day one, it was just great. Yeah, there's those little fires that you have to put out as an AD, but for me, that was a game changer, and I just wish I could have used that earlier in my career.
Well, I got to tell you, Jake, I wanted to make this episode really good. And one of my goals was for not only people to buy my book, but to get some ideas from me. But you've been doing this a long time. So I wanted to steal something from you. So I'm so glad that you were able to throw that out there because I think that's fantastic. I love it. But none of us know what we don't know when we start out, and we shouldn't beat ourselves up about it. It's just part of the deal. And the one other thing I'll say to this, and I'll wrap up with a couple examples from the book here, is I think one of the things that if anybody out there is listening to this that was a coach and transitioned into this administrative role, one of the things that is very cool, and especially if you're new, you're gonna find this out real quick. I had blinders on, and you and I are on Zoom, so I got my blinders on here. I only knew what was happening to the Marquette Mustang basketball program, and I was zeroed into every aspect of it. You get that activities director job, you realize that the kids in your school who are trying to earn a part in the play, who are trying to be lead tuba, who are trying to play midfield in lacrosse, they're working just as hard and putting as many hours in as your basketball program was. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's something that is fun for us to promote in these jobs. So, okay, let me throw out, I got like 3 quickies out of the book. I got over 200 chapters. So if I give away 3, that's okay. The first 2 are kind of relatable to each other. So this is the first thing. I wrote a chapter called A Clean Bench, and I wrote a chapter called Are You in the Right Locker Room? We all want to win. ADs want to win too, because it's fun to put the trophy in the trophy case. But there, you can't control everything. The other team may be better than everybody on TV and message boards. What's wrong with us? Why don't we do this? Well, the other team's trying too. That's a factor. So one of the things I learned real quick from Coach Stewart at the University of Missouri, this is my job. When we left the bench at the Lloyd Noble Arena in Norman, Oklahoma, or Ahern Fieldhouse in Manhattan, Kansas, and we even cleaned it up in that Allen Field. I don't even like to talk about that place in Lawrence, Kansas, but we even cleaned the bench there as well. That's something you can control, and people notice because the custodian is just as an important a person as anybody else in that building, and they notice things, and they notice what kind of character you have. Are you in the right locker room when the game's over? I've walked into losing locker rooms, and I know how my teams conducted themselves, and I know how the other team maybe carry themselves when they walk in the gym and all this. There's been games I've lost, but I've told my kids, don't worry about it. We're going to go back to work tomorrow. I know I'm in the right locker room for me. And I think that meant a lot to them. And I think they told their parents that. I think that conveyed a lot of gravitas. Last 2, these are very AD specific. To send or not to send. We've all woke up early in the morning and picked up our phone and had the 48 paragraph email from mom or dad, dated at 2:30 a.m. And oh, so badly I want to reply to that with my own 48 paragraphs. No, when you get to school, pick up the phone, whether they're right or they're wrong, and say, you know what? Anybody that takes the time to draft an email of that length and that amount of care and concern deserves a conversation, and cut it off at the pass. And I really tried to instill that in my coaches because it is so easy in this world to shoot the text back or to shoot the email, and the war continues and it never ends. And the last one I'll leave you with, which I think is my best advice I can give someone in this world, chapter called Do You Have a Place? You've got to have somewhere to go to. And Jake, I can't tell you how many chapters in this book were inspired when I'm out in the yard mowing. And just thoughts are jumbled in my brain, and I come up with something. I'm like, this makes sense. I want to share this with people. That was my quiet place to go to, and to be me. And I think everybody needs that. I can't encourage my cohorts in this profession enough to find that place for you.
Oh, I love it. Those are all, things we need to put in our AD toolbox segment. We'll have to get you back on down the road to do another episode. Shane, thanks again for sharing with our listeners your wisdom and your heart. Okay, very cool to hear all that. Let's cut to the chase. If they want to get a copy of the book, and listeners, it's got a tremendous resource here. How do they get a copy of Coaching? Is it worth it? Absolutely, by Shane Matzen.
You got the title right. You go to Amazon, you type that in, or you type my name, Shane Matzen. The last name has a little bit of an odd spelling. We didn't change it coming over from Europe. It's Matzen. And I'm sure you'll have it on whatever you post out there. hardcover editions, paperback, and also ebooks. So I've got it out there for however you can get your hands on it. And my email address, shanematson22@gmail.com. That's at the end of the book as well. If someone wants to reach out, has any questions, I'd love to have conversations. Anybody that's been in this business knows how much we have to stick together because it's the only way we're going to succeed in this. The AD world is a great world because it's so cooperative. So, as much as I hated getting out of coaching, I'm proud to say I did this for 9 years.
Well, again, it's very true. ADs coach the coaches, so you still have a hand in it. Shane, thanks again for sharing all the best with the book and all of your other activities. And hopefully our paths will cross in person somewhere down the road.
I hope so. We got to tell some Missouri Valley Vikings and Central Methodist Eagles stories somewhere down the line. So anyway, Jake, thank you. It was very kind of you to have me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, we appreciate you. And for our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this every single week, and just about every day we try to share stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. One more time, that was Shane Matzen, Matzen, and the book is Coaching. Is it worth it? Absolutely. And the book's available on Amazon. Type in Shane Matzen for the book title. Before we go, we also want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Ohio University and their online masters, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack, Hometown Ticketing, Snap Raise, Sideline Interactive, Home Campus, Gipper, and Huddle. Go and visit these sponsors. You're going to be glad you did. And thanks again for listening to the Educational AD Podcast.